most of the people feel, that when the fee is high, then you think that the education is best.
If a school is double the fee, is that premium worth it, right?
Yeah.
As well. And this is the question parents would have.
Do the parents get to know how much is the teacher's compensation in a school?
So schools don't talk about it. It's not put on their website, right? If a school needs toppers to prove its success, that's not necessarily a good indicator, because it says, what about the other majority of children as well?
Yeah.
What's happening with them, right? You're doing that because you're trying to convince people on the outside world that you have elite academic credentials.
That we are
right?
capable, probably.
Yeah, and that this is what we produce, right? And this is the outcome.
3 things if you had to tell a parent to see before you admit your child in a school.
Infrastructure's a fairly visible one that people can see. Okay, they've got great sports infrastructure, they may have a swimming pool, they may have whatever it is, like great science labs, and they're brand new. And that's where it's going. And again, these are things that you contrast between a school X and a school Y.
So the narrative in the society usually is, when you go to gatherings or anywhere, that schools are minting money. That is true or false?
Say you go to a hospital, you'd be saying they're minting money there from me, right? I go for any service and they're minting money from there, right? So there's a little bit of a mindset here as well. Schools are non-profit, right?
Yeah.
But they are charging a fee.
Yeah.
So the question in the mind of everybody is, why are you even charging me this fee? And every time you're going to increase this fee, why are you increasing this fee? So yes, schools need to engage better with parents as well, to be able to explain fundamentals, right? Like, we do need to increase our fees, not because we're trying to generate profit, because we pay our teachers more every year. A regular fee increase is something that you should be okay with.
Should schools be profitable? Welcome, Raj sir, to SchoolCast with Avyakt.
Thank you. Most happy to be here.
Yeah. Sir, to begin with, can you introduce yourself in 2 minutes?
Sure. Okay. So I'm Raj Singh Bhandal. I'm a trustee of the Vasant Valley School in Delhi, a school that's been here since 1990, so 36 years. I have been actively involved with the school since around 2020.
Okay.
Last 6 years as part of the trustees and supporting the management team as well. And I've been a parent in that school as well.
Oh, okay.
For two of my children.
Great. So now today what we are talking about is a topic which parents want to know about. They think about it a lot. They discuss in informal gatherings, but it's not spoken about enough in public. So the topic is that, are private schools worth the money, the fees they take, the thousands of rupees per month which a parent has to sacrifice? So that is what we're going to talk about.
Sure.
So starting with, sir, let me be very direct. A parent paying thousands of rupees a month. So when does the school fee stop being start being a luxury purchase and stop being a necessity?
So when we say a necessity, first of all, education is there for everyone. Every child needs to go to school. So it's a necessity in that way. Yeah. So, but when we say, and it costs money to deliver private school education. Yeah. There's real, there's people, there's infrastructure, there's everything else that goes around making that happen. So a fee is inevitable if it's in the private sector. I think that's the first place. Now the question then becomes, what is an appropriate fee, right? Yeah. And what is from a parent perspective, what is worth paying for? What am I paying for? And am I getting value for money?
Absolutely.
And, for it, and for something that actually matters to me, right? That's what the question becomes. So when you start to look at that, then it really becomes, what am I paying and what am I getting back? And I think in that case, is what I'm paying justified? Yeah. And if it's beyond what is justified in terms of what a school is investing in and the resources to deliver to me, then you can start to say, okay, I'm not sure if I'd use the word luxury, right? Yeah. But I'd saying, is it sensible, right? Is it worth it? I would more sort of reframe it a little bit and say, when does it become not worth that extra premium as well?
So there was a study called the Prestige study in 2020. So what it says is that when you study from an expensive college or a renowned college, let's say Harvard or XYZ, any private college, so then the chances of you getting a higher salary are much more than a person with the same IQ studying from a basic college, let's say any college in India. Now, when we talk about school education, is the same thing applying here, that the fees the schools are charging, what you said, what is worth it or what is not worth it? Are the parents only paying for the network they get, the personality development of the child, Or what are they actually paying for? Because in India, there's an option of a government school, then there's an option of a private school which has 200 to 500 rupees a month.
Yep.
And then there are schools which are taking thousands of rupees a month. So what is your take on that?
So I think the study you're referring to was a 2020 study in the American Economic Journal.
Absolutely.
And that was based on public universities and colleges as well.
Yeah.
So, it was looking at places, the study group would be higher education institutes, right? And that definitely came up with that, which is the peer group and where you went mattered as well. And I think a lot of that is linked to recruitment as well afterwards. So where do recruiters go as well?
Yeah.
And when they look at colleges and they say, okay, where should we go and find candidates? And typically they home in on a few institutions to do that as well. So let's say, for example, a Delhi College of Engineering would be on a short list for recruiters. So if you're in one of those institutes, you're going to have a much higher chance of a successful outcome versus other engineering colleges, which may be equally good, but just don't have that reputation or brand on them as well. So I think there is a genuine linkage at that level, and the research is showing that.
Yeah.
But now if you take from that and you infer now at a school level, right? I mean, so there's no study specifically at a school level that's been done, but okay, we can try and take that and say, at a school level, is there something also as well there, right? Now, I'm not so sure about that, right? Because from a school, you end up going to college. You don't go straight to work. You don't go into employment, right?
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, does it give you an advantage for college, right?
Yeah.
Now, in the Indian context, not really, because how do colleges take intakes? They're all competitive examination based, right? So either you're doing a CUET, you're doing a JEE, you're doing a NEET. So most of those are based on that. And there's no criteria in there about where you've studied, right? So I'm not so sure on the school side when it needs, what's the next point from your school journey, which is higher education, where you've studied actually helps you in any way, right? Unless it's academically superior and prepares you academically better, because the only assessment criteria is academics, right, in that case. But coming back on, so I think that's broader what I'd kind of say around that question. But having said that, you could say that yes, longer term, where you go to school, the kind of peer group you've been with, is that going to matter long term as well? And, if you take that same thing, when people are looking 15, 20 years into their professional careers, where are their peers as well? Now, you could say those that have potentially been to certain academic institutions may well end up, in places where they could potentially be doing better. Now, I don't know. There's not enough research I've seen around that specifically for schools, but colleges, yes, you're right.
No, now talking about the research, the school bit wasn't from a research, but there's a thing called ACER. They do the research for the annual survey of education research, something like that. So in 2024, they came out with the research and they did a research about all the low fee schools of India. And then they did a research on the private schools, which are slightly higher fees.
Okay.
So what we got to know is that private schools are better in terms of academics. The students are better. But the kind of growth the children with lower fee schools are seeing, that is much higher than the private schools. So when I'm paying that, then I'm expecting the best teachers. But the teachers of the government schools, they have higher salaries than the private school teachers. Now I'm paying money primarily for academics and other things. But the academics I'm getting, the teachers can we say that they are better in government schools, or what can we infer from this?
Okay. So, you're right. I mean, there's research out there that has been done that has shown that typically teachers in the private school, and if you take the whole private school sector, which varies, like you said, dramatically from low budget, single room schools through to large, urban schools as well. So there's a huge spectrum there as well, right? And I think putting it all together can be, misleading in some ways as well. But, and I think where you see a split with that is that in the smaller schools, neighborhood schools, low budget schools, they can't pay those salaries, right? It's not viable economically for them to do that. And therefore they have to pay below, they can't match those rates. So, whereas in the larger schools, I don't see, that gap is much smaller, as well. So, I think it varies by the type of school and nature of it as well. But in terms of, the government salaries are mandated by the Pay Commission. They said it's a bureaucratic process. And I think teachers who get recruited there have a great deal because they're guaranteed their increments, they're guaranteed a pay review every 10 years, and all the other benefits that come with it as well. And that's why they're so coveted, those jobs are as well. Yeah. So I was going to say there is a supply demand situation. So there are a lot of graduates.
Yeah.
You know? And when you look at any situation like that, supply demand situation, you're going to get a price that clears the market, right?
Yeah.
In terms of that. So you could say that private schools are benefiting from that because there is a large supply of teachers in the market, and therefore they can choose and they can recruit and pay less than government school level. Now, is that the right thing to do? You know, in terms of from a parent saying, you know, am I getting substandard teachers? I would say the question really becomes, how much of what I'm contributing as a parent is going towards paying those teachers in the school? Now, if it happens to be a low budget school, but most of what I'm paying is going towards teacher salary, then I know that they're directing it as the best they can to the teacher resource. Whereas if I'm at a large school, I'd expect them to be paying the teachers significantly better.
Yeah. But do you think there is so much transparency that if I'm a parent and I'm sending my child to a school, I am aware about where the fee is going here and there, or there is a lot of there are a lot of loopholes, or I don't know how to say it, but when you get the fees, there are so many things written on it. But do parents even understand? Why I'm asking all of this is because coming from a parent's POV, they have a lot of questions and they are very confused. So in the morning only, I was talking to a person who works with me, and they were also confused whether they should send their child to a school which has a very high fee, because like them, I also feel, or most of the people feel, that when the fee is high, then you think that the education is best. But I don't know if it's true.
Yeah. See, that's across the board, right? With any goods or services that we procure.
Yeah.
You go to a hospital, right? And you think, okay, because it's priced at a certain level, the quality must be better. Well, you know, does price indicate quality, right? And it's many, many goods and services we have. You go to a hotel, right? You do a similar thing as well. You buy a car, right?
Yeah.
That's always it. So the question always is like, okay, for what I'm being asked to pay more for here, right? Versus the other, is there value in this, right? Is it linked to what I actually want or what matters to me, right? So that's the challenge, right, to figure out in this. And just because if a school is double the fee, is that premium worth it, right? As well. And this is the question parents would have, right?
Absolutely.
How do I understand this as well?
Absolutely.
So it is challenging. As I said, it's across, it's not just schools, but it's in many purchase decisions or investment decisions that we make. And you're investing in your child's future as well in this case. And it's a long decision. Now with NEP, it's 15 years if they stay in the same school. That's a long time, right? So what I would say with that is, it's about how is that additional fee being utilized and understanding. So when you look at a school, you say fundamentally, where does money go in a school, right? And if you put it into a couple of buckets, right? The first one is clearly in terms of teachers, right? And that should always be the most important thing that anybody looks at, is in terms of, because that's where your child spends all the time. It's the classroom, right? That's fundamentally the core of the school, is the classroom, right? So, for example, are you seeing a higher fee translate into smaller class sizes, right? That's a tangible metric, right?
Yeah, that's a tangible metric.
A class size of 50 versus a class size of 35.
Yeah.
You know, that means that you, straight away, the economics, people can do the numbers and sort of say, okay, clearly the school is spending a hell of a lot more, right?
Absolutely.
Per child on a teacher to student ratio. So what is that teacher to student ratio in the school as well, right? So that's one clear metric that somebody can say, okay, let me look at that here in this school, let me look at that school. And if this one is charging twice as much as that, I'd expect that a significant difference in that metric, for example, right? The other one we talked about was compensation levels, right? What do they pay their teachers as well, right? What does the school pay? Now, I'd expect that if I'm paying more to the school, they have more resources available, and they should be paying more to the teachers, because then they'll be able to attract better quality teachers, right? As well. So I think these are simple ones, right? The easier ones, these are ones that should be really the crux of what you're trying to get to. Infrastructure is a fairly visible one that people can see. Okay, they've got great sports infrastructure, they may have a swimming pool, they may have whatever it is, like great science labs, and they're brand new. And that's where it's going. And again, these are things that you can contrast between a school X and a school Y. that indicate, that if I'm spending more, where's it showing up in the school experience my child's going to get?
So amazing. So as per you, if a parent is doubtful about where the fee is being utilized, so there are three metrics. Number one is the teacher-student ratio. So how many students are there in the class basically, one teacher to how many students. Number two, you said, is the teacher compensation. And number three is the infra.
Yeah.
Now, my point is that do the parents get to know how much is the teacher's compensation in a school?
So schools don't talk about it. It's not put on their website, right? If that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think, these are questions that potentially as parents, when you're looking and you're trying to say, look, I need to make an informed decision, right?
Yeah.
What can I look at here as well? I mean, one side you can look at is, let me look at the academic results of the school, right? I mean, that's the simplest metric. What are the toppers scoring, right? Who have they put up on their website? Whose faces have they put there as well? Although what I would say is, if a school needs toppers to prove its success, that's not necessarily a good indicator, because it says, what about the other majority of children as well?
Yeah.
What's happening with them, right? If what you're trying to sell yourself is just on those few toppers of your school as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but these are indicators otherwise people use, is what your pass rate was as well. So you've got these sort of very crude metrics that schools do publish, right?
Yeah.
And they're available. But that's really it. I mean, it's very difficult to get information beyond that.
Absolutely.
School, right?
Absolutely.
But I think it's valid for parents to ask, and say, okay, can you share this? And if a school isn't ready to, I mean, there'd be some stuff that'd be sensitive about, let's say, but the things I've said, there's no reason why a school shouldn't be able to share that with a parent, to say, okay, this is our student teacher ratio, right? This is the size of our classes. This is what we do pay our teachers as well, right? This is what we've invested in infrastructure over the last few years.
Yeah. But do you guys actually tell the parents how much you guys are paying the teachers?
So, I mean, we don't put it out there,
Yeah.
but I mean, if a parent was to ask us, our answer is actually quite simple. We pay government level salaries.
The sixth and the seventh pay commissions.
Seventh pay commission in full. So it's benchmarked to that. And our teachers get the same increments as well. We benchmark to that as well. So our answer is quite straightforward if someone asks that as well.
No, why there is so much mistrust in the society? Because if we look at the private schools overall, so what is happening there is that the teachers get a certain salary in their bank account and they're asked to withdraw the money and just hand over the cash back. So since this is happening at the country level in thousands of schools, so there is so much mistrust that even if there is a one Vasant Valley or any other school who's following the commissions, people cannot trust. It's very difficult to trust.
Yeah. So look, what I'd say with that is, look, there'll always be different types of people in every industry that we have as well. And it's not just schooling, but I think as a society, as what we are, there'll always be people who operate in one way or another way, right?
Yeah.
And therefore that's always going to happen. I don't think you can avoid that, right? As well. Now, how do you address that? I'm not sure, right? I mean, it's a larger question for our society as well. Because as I said, it's not just in education. We see this happening across many, many sectors as well, right? But coming back on what you're saying there as well then is, how do you look at a school from a parent perspective? I mean, these things you don't know, you have to go on a trust basis. I would say part of it also is looking at the kind of people that are running the school as well, right? Who are the kind of people running there? What's their kind of motivation in terms of running an academic institute as well? Are they there because they believe schools are playing a role in society? And they do. I mean, fundamentally, schools are the future of our country.
Yeah, definitely.
So, if you want to see what the nation's going to look like 20 years from now, go and look in our schools.
Of course.
Right? So we're serving that. And so there are educators who come with that philosophy and saying that this is the purpose in doing. And you can start to get a feel from that. Parents can, when they're interacting with school leaderships, with management, with the promoters. These are things that start to come across in terms of what's there.
No, why this conversation is so important is because in the digital world, in the AI world today we are living in, there is it is so easy to create a facade on a LinkedIn or a website just to stand there and write a few lines, because even if I'm a parent admitting my child to a school, I don't get to talk to the owner. I don't get to talk to the trustee. Yes, I do get a glimpse of the principal or the teachers, but it is very hard to decide just on the basis of one or two meetings. And I don't know if in the future, when the AI world is getting more and more serious, will the schools still work only by their brand name? Like if a Vasant Valley is there, so will students or parents only choose that because it's been going on for 30 years?
See, I think there's an element of so I think breaking down what you just said into
Yeah.
two different things there. There's always marketing has always existed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there's always a question of there's between the story and the marketing pitch,
Yeah.
what's the reality on the ground? And
Yeah.
that's with anything
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that people are buying, buying, purchasing out there as well, whether it's education you're investing in or any other thing as well. And maybe with new technology, it's very easy to sort of upscale your marketing to the reality.
Yeah.
So how do you get a feel for what the reality is as a parent before you come into school? What are the ways you can do that? So the other very powerful ways, talk to other parents who are already in that school as well,
Yeah.
right? Are they happy?
So let's do
Right.
it this way. So 3 things if you had to tell a parent to see before you admit your child in a school.
Okay. So I would say talk to existing parents, right? Because school doesn't control them. They're
Yeah.
independent people as well, right?
Yeah.
So through your networks, find people. Yeah, you can go on LinkedIn. Well, maybe not through LinkedIn, but you'll find people whose
Yeah.
children are there in
Yeah.
those schools through your own network as well, right? Talk to them. See how they feel, right?
Yeah.
How does the school actually engage with them, right? How happy are they with the experience and all? So this is your most powerful indicator, right?
Yeah.
Which is, how is the experience of people who are already there as well? So I don't think maybe enough parents don't do that, but I think that's probably one of the most powerful indicators. right?
Absolutely.
The second is the couple of things I said earlier as well, which is looking at, some indicators of what the priority of the school is are they investing in teachers, right?
Yeah.
Because I think like attrition level of teachers,
Yeah.
and these are questions you can ask. If they don't answer those questions, then why they're not ready to share basic information like what's your teacher attrition rate over the
No,
last.
but the point is, whom do you ask? Like, if I go to a school, whom do I ask these questions?
Yeah. So, well, okay, that's a very good point as well.
Yeah.
Where with the admission processes, depending on how they're controlled by different schools,
Yeah.
you may not even get an opportunity
Absolutely.
to ask that question,
Yeah.
right? Then I would say that at some point you're going to have to go and have some interaction somewhere, right, in
Yeah.
that process. And wherever you get that opportunity to ask that question and then, see what that response comes back to be as well.
Makes sense.
But as I said, I think the best is talking to existing people who are already there as well. They'll give you an indicator. For example, what's the class size?
Yeah.
If you talk to existing parents, you can ask the same questions I've just.
You should have the right questions, then you'll get the answers
Yes.
probably.
So I'm saying you can ask existing parents, have you seen anything change in the school? Have they been building anything infrastructure wise? Yeah. How many kids are sitting in your class as well? Has the teachers been changing over the last few years? Are they the same So you get other ways you can try and capture this information.
Yeah. No, if you are smart and you think about it a little, you can actually ask the right questions. In the business world, we call this the mom test. If you do the mom test right, if you ask the right question, then only you'll get the right answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said a very powerful line, which is toppers don't decide a school's success.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it for so long, but the school marketing industry of India has been such that every school is just sharing that we have 100% scorers, 1,500% scorers. This environment of intense competition, is it a positive environment?
So you said marketing, right?
Yeah.
So I would see this is a marketing gimmick,
Yeah,
right? For
yeah.
schools as well. Because what are you trying to say? Why are you doing that, right? You're doing that because you're trying to convince people on the outside world that you have elite academic credentials.
That we are
right?
capable, probably.
Yeah, and that this is what we produce, right? And this is the outcome. But what it shows is a thin slice of students, right,
Yeah.
from your school. And then you're saying, what about the vast majority? You're not talking about them at all, right? But this is what grabs attention, right? We still see it all the time because this is how you generate business and you generate inquiries and you show success. So it's unfortunate. But then it also raises that question, what are you doing about the rest of the children as well? How are they getting on as well, right? So I think it's unhealthy, right, as well. I think you should be celebrating the success of the entire cohort of your school. As
Absolutely.
Well, right?
So, but do you guys do that at Vasant Valley?
So it's a tough one, right? Because the natural inclination is to make that happen.
Yeah.
So we try to find a balanced approach, which
Okay.
is celebrate the entire success of a class as
Okay.
well, what they've achieved. So in terms of the whole class has done this, they've gone through, and we've done this recently with our last couple of examination results. And if there are students that perform well, they will get some additional attention. But what we don't do is put them up with here's a percent, top of this.
You
top
guys
of
don't do that?
No, we don't do it at that level. No.
Which is very
Yeah.
surprising.
So we don't, because we think, we don't think that's the right approach. We think, that everyone has done well, right? And the school is responsible for the outcome of every child, not just
Absolutely.
those 2 or 3 as well.
No, I might not be a topper in academics, but I might be a topper in sports, or I might be a topper in music.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then they're excelling in what they're doing as well, right?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of giving a message, these other things don't matter.
Absolutely. And that is why when we go to the Olympics and when we go to the higher competitions in music and everything, India is lagging behind, because in our society overall, we don't consider anything apart from academics important.
Right. And I think the other thing why it's unhealthy now is, well, you talked about AI earlier as well,
Yeah.
and the transformation that's happening as well. And when you start to think about, is it going to be academics? Is that's going to lead to success in the future? Probably not now, right?
Yeah,
Where things are
absolutely.
going.
Absolutely.
So optimizing and saying, that topper is your dream, and to get that mark, that is kind of not preparing children for what they need to actually be ready for to succeed in life.
Absolutely. Because when we look at countries like Korea or probably Japan, so when they see a student in grade 4 or 5 excelling in something, so they put all their efforts in that field. They don't force them to do this, that, other things. And then the results we can already see.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one, because we still, we still do that.
Long
which is-
way to go.
Yeah, we're still celebrating those few kids every time.
Yeah, now we spoke about that parents aren't aware where the fee is actually going. So, in percentages, if you can actually tell a parent watching this, if I'm paying 100 rupees, where does the fees actually go?
Yeah. So it's going to vary, right?
Yeah, of course.
As I said, because it'd be very different, and it's inappropriate and probably not even accurate to try and generalize, given the spectrum of schools we talked about, right? A school that is a low budget school will have a very different set of challenges to a large scale school. Now, I can only really talk about the larger school size as well, the more organized school sector as well, which you can call premium schools, if you want to call them that, or higher fee schools. Now, first of all, the number one thing has to go to teachers, right? So the majority of the expense would go towards teacher salaries.
How much is it if you could put in percentage?
Again, it's going to vary from institution to institution.
I
It
agree.
should be maybe at least 50%, 50 to 70%, right? And that range may, from institution to institution.
Yeah.
But, there's the largest chunk will go into salaries.
Okay.
Should I say that, right? And so what I mean by that is it's not just the teaching staff, but the entire staff workforce, right? That's in the school as well, which includes the administration staff as well. But say at least 50 to 70%.
All right.
Somewhere in that range, right? And I think that's the biggest chunk that's going to go there as well.
Okay.
Then beyond that, you've got the whole building infrastructure, running the whole infrastructure of the school as well, which will be your next largest chunk as well, right? You've got development, which I would probably put at a similar. So you're investing in new infrastructure, capital expenditure that's going on as well, upgrading labs, putting new sports facilities, whatever those new infrastructures are as well. So I think by far and away, from what I showed you, is that the people cost is number one, right? The biggest. Then you're going into all the buildings and infrastructure as a second. Then you've got your development happening after that as well.
So can we say that schools spend about 90 rupees out of 100?
So, like if you take in the case, well, I would say, like if you take Delhi, over the last 10 years, schools have been spending more than 90 out of 100, right?
Really?
Because of the way that the regulatory environment in Delhi has been, right? Which has been extremely harsh for schools in terms of not even being able to look at their fees, even in line with inflation. Inflation is real. Costs are going up. Salaries are going up of staff members, but they've not even been able to recover that as well. So almost, I would say even, yes, at least that much. And in some cases, 100% has been going from schools who have been struggling just to sustain, right? Because the income that they've generated has not covered the type of the cost increases that they've had.
No, but there are so many surveys happening. There's a survey called Local Circles. So they did a survey of about 15,000 parents. So about 44% of the parents are saying that in the last 3 years, 50 to 80% of fee has been increased. And about 8% are saying 80% has been increased. So, and you are saying that in the last 10 years, Like there hasn't been a big change in Delhi specifically.
Yeah. So was that survey, was it a Delhi specific or
No, that was a countrywide.
countrywide? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to vary from place to place as
Okay,
well, right?
okay.
And I think it'd be difficult for me to comment on every state is different because it's a state, it's a concurrent
Laws are
subject, but
different.
the laws are different, and the fee regulation and how it operates is different in every single state as well. Specifically in the Delhi case,
Yeah.
it's been quite a problematic last 10 years, right? I mean, the amount of money that has been spent, sadly, on litigation is unfortunate. The amount the government has spent on litigation, the amount private schools have been forced and associations on legal costs. The only people who really benefited from this is the legal fraternity.
The lawyers.
Yeah, they've done very well out of this. And in fact, which is all around this. And what's happened in that period is that there's not been any steady known regime for how schools can ensure that their genuine cost increases are reflected in fee increase. So what has happened in some cases is that schools were not able to increase their fees to cover the genuine increase in costs. Salaries go up every year. They have to pay their staff more as well, right? Inflation is real. We all live within the real world. Inflation has been around 5% in India over the last decade, right? So schools' costs have to go up by that much. If they're paying teachers more every year as well, that cost is there. Now, if they're not able to pass that on a regular basis, then what's happened, I think, in some cases, is where schools have been forced, unfortunately, which has caused the issues, is to push that into a much higher hike in a few years.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a great place to be as well, and is not a comfortable position for parents, and I can totally understand that. But you've had unfortunately, a systematic process from a regulatory perspective that's caused these problems.
So the narrative in the society usually is when you go to gatherings or anywhere that schools are minting money. That is a common narrative not every, but majority of people have. That is true or false?
Look, I don't think schools are minting money at all. Well, it's not a minting money, right? Yeah. Now, again, I think I don't know if there's a mindset here, right? Yeah. Is that we're always, as a society, viewing things from this negative sort of lens. I'm saying you go to a hospital, you'd be saying they're minting money there from me, right? I go for any service and they're minting money from there, right? So there's a little bit of a mindset here as well, and also a trust kind of deficit, right, with a lot of services in this way as well. Now, I'm sure that with any industry, there'll be good and there'll be bad within there as well, right? And I think the danger is that, some people who are maybe bad, and I'm sure, and I'm not saying everybody in the school industry is great, but there are many good people as well, right? It's mixed bag. And it's unfair to sort of people to take that perspective as well, I think.
I think I'm coming from a confused lens here, because I don't know if the fee the schools are charging, is it worth it or not? Because I think you're right when you say that hospitals are making money and it's a business. Now the government has made it a very complicated area because schools aren't allowed to make money. Because when we go abroad, when we go to Dubai or when we go to any other country, schools are legitimately earning money and paying their taxes.
Right.
So when they do that and the people know that it is happening, then they are okay with it. But since this has been going on in India that schools cannot make money, so I don't know, that narrative has created a lot of tension everywhere.
Yeah, so it's this, you're right, there is this tension, which is that schools are non-profit, right?
Yeah.
But they are charging a fee.
Yeah.
So the question in the mind of everybody is, why are you even charging me this fee? And every time you're going to increase this fee, why are you increasing this fee? So it creates this whole atmosphere where, you're right, where it's constantly being questioned.
Yeah.
Any increase, even if it's reasonable, right? It's being questioned, which is like every rupee has to be justified as well because of that type of nature, that environment that's been set up there as well. So it's, so I think it creates an expectation. Yeah. It creates that expectation in parents.
Now, when we talk about this, there was a controversy recently which happened with DPS Dwarka, school in Delhi. So they put a few bouncers for students or parents because they didn't pay they didn't pay the fees.
Right.
And when they went to the court, the law said that this is not done, like school cannot do this.
Yeah.
So now there is a very thin line in doing all this. So what do you think, should schools treat parents like this, or should they be more open and accept people who are not paying a fee? How should it happen?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that was pretty unfortunate, and that incident, snowballed into
Yeah.
quite a big case, and obviously went to the courts in that case as well. Um, and what made that happen was this fee increase that I think
Yeah.
that they suddenly imposed, or sort of parents felt was unfair,
Yeah.
right, for them as well.
Yeah.
And again, that kind of came back down to where, again, the regulatory environment, I would say there was been I would say failures, but it not working right, resulting in a school like that deciding that the way they had to actually, recover or sort of fund themselves was by putting fee increases in, right?
Yeah.
Which happened to happen quite more steeply than parents were used to.
Yeah.
And that wasn't and parents are not used to budgeting for that. And suddenly they've got an expense that they didn't know, and that's makes it really tough for them as well.
Yeah.
So I can understand. And then that incident happened. And I think specifically, which was where parents were not paying the fee, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens in that case? It's a tough one, because how do you find the right balance, right? Because on the one hand, clearly the child shouldn't suffer, right? I mean, they're just collateral damage in this whole process, right? And that shouldn't be the case. And that's absolutely not right, because we're talking about children here, right? And I think sometimes we forget that education is around children, right?
Yeah.
And that's that, and we need to sort of remember that all the time as well. That's what we're dealing with here. So that's one side, which is the child shouldn't suffer. But at the same time, if parents have the financial capacity and the means to, but for whatever reason they don't want to, then that also starts to create a problematic situation for schools. So, nobody wants, and I think, so you need to find a way where there's a better understanding, I think, with this as well. And my thing when I was on this is that I think better conversation needs to happen, and an understanding or some trust, which is that, yes, schools need to be engaged better with parents as well, to be able to explain fundamentals, right? Like, we do need to increase our fees, not because we're trying to generate profit, because we pay our teachers more every year. This is our salary bill last year. This is what we're going to be paying and increasing, or we have increased over the last 3 years. This is inflation, right?
Yeah.
It's real. You have it at home and all the other expenses.
Of course.
We're in the same country as well. We bear it as well. So the fees that we're trying to increase by, we need to do that so we can continue delivering the quality of education of why you chose the school in the first place.
No, I think the major point which comes out of all this is that if even after this environment, the government policies, the schools start becoming a little more communicative, like they are transparent and they are telling their parents more things, then it will be easier for them. Because if you eventually, if you have to increase the fees, so you have to explain it to the person who's paying it. So if you are regularly communicating about these things throughout the year, not only that we have to increase the fees because this, but regularly communicating with the parents and understanding them, then it is much easier to do this peacefully.
Yeah. So I think there's better engagement, right?
Yeah.
Will help in that process,
Yeah.
because that will increase understanding level, right? In terms of, as I said, I think one of the biggest fundamental ones for me is that parents to understand, and therefore there's a role of schools to help them understand that a regular fee increase is something that you should be okay with, right? Because it's just fundamental economics, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the first 101 step of this.
I think one of the biggest problems with the Indian society, majorly, of course, not everyone, is the sales skills. Because again, the sales skills come here. Communication is a part of sales. Negotiation is a part of sales. When you go to the US or you go anywhere, there's a small mountain also. So they'll sell it like it's the biggest thing on earth and they'll take $20. But in India, we have 1,000 things for which we can charge, but we are not able to. Everything is free. Probably the core problem is sales.
Sales.
Yeah.
In terms of we're not selling,
yeah, like we don't market ourselves or we don't sell ourselves properly.
So, in the school context, then,
Yeah.
in terms of you saying to parents,
Yeah, like if the school, you don't have to sell the fee, but you have to sell yourself. Everyone has to sell themselves. Even you have to sell yourself to the parents also. Like your parent also, sometimes you have to convince them for something. So if the schools start selling themselves better, probably the parents will have a better response to everything.
yeah. So I wouldn't use the word sell,
Yeah.
but I would say help parents to understand better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Or
in this context,
yeah.
yes.
And I think 'cause given the context of what we're talking about as well, that it's children we're dealing
Yeah.
with as well, help them understand better
Mm.
what is it that the school's delivering to them as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think that time has changed where, that didn't need to be done in how we are as a society now as well, hyper connected, information everywhere. Schools need to adapt to the reality. The modern parent has changed. They're not the parent that they were 25 years ago.
Exactly. Now, I have a question and then I have a follow-up question. So,
Okay.
should schools be profitable?
Schools be profitable. I think, I think we need to be clear what we mean by that as well, right?
Can schools make a surplus? Can they make extra money like a business?
Yeah. So I think schools need to be able to make a reasonable surplus in the
Yeah.
first place, because how else do they invest as
Yeah.
well, right? Something like a COVID comes along, and then how do you see something like that through as well? So you need some surpluses that you can reinvest in and develop as well. Beyond that, if there are, and I think especially in the case, if there are people, if schools have to borrow, for example, to
Yeah.
do development, right?
Yeah.
They need to pay back people as well, right?
Yeah.
On that as well. So that understanding as well, that if they have to take capital, and then they have to return that capital, and somebody expects some kind of return on that as well, because it's not charitable necessarily from that person's perspective, then they need to be able to return that as well, right? Now, so they need to generate enough surplus to be able to do these things.
Now, the Delhi High Court came out with a surplus ruling. Like few years back, there was some case with DPS Vasant Kunj versus some GTSD, I don't know. And the judge, so he said that schools can actually make a surplus, they can profit, and they can increase the fee, and they just have to tell the government in advance. They don't have to take a permission.
Right.
And that was applicable till 2027. Is it still applicable?
So, so what that was, actually, just last 2 weeks, 22nd of May, there was another court judgment as well in the High Court on the same matter as well, where the High Court judge again came out and reiterated that same thing again, right? Which is that, yes, under the Delhi School Education Act and the rules that are there as well, schools do not need to get prior approval from the Department of Education. This is just 22nd of May. The judgment is there, right?
And today we are at 4th June.
That's what I'm saying. So it's just literally just last month, right? Just 2 weeks ago, or less than that even. So that reiterated that they don't need to do that, right? So it backs up the earlier High Court judgments. And this is what I was saying, that this is cases that have been running for 10, years and years that have been going on in the High Courts. And if you should do the list of lawyers involved, it's crazy. And think all of those lawyers have had to be paid to do what? To get back to a place like this.
Yeah. Which is shocking. Then again, there is Delhi Ordinance Law, Delhi Education Ordinance Law, which caps the fee. And if a school increases the fee, you have to pay it back within 20 days. Is that applicable?
So
because you are saying that was also passed, and then this is also there. So it's a little confusing.
Yeah. So that was the 1973 Delhi School Education Act.
Yeah.
Which you'd say actually it's about time it was reformed, where even as a nation where we've moved to, you're talking over 50 years old.
Can you tell in a minute for the audience what is Delhi School Education
So
Act?
the Delhi School Education Act is the act that governs how schools operate in Delhi, right? In terms of how they need to be constituted, how they need to operate, how their fees are structured as well, all the rules that they need to run by as well in Delhi. So it's under the act and there's rules there as well. And so it's basically the laws that schools have to abide by as far as the education department is concerned, all the schools that are recognized. Now, you're right, the ordinance that came last June 25 essentially updated that act. So it was the Delhi School Education Act, but in terms of, I think, fee, transparency, and fixation regulation, right? Yeah. So essentially just tackled one part of that, which was the fee part of it. And then that went into became an act in August, and rules were notified in December. Okay, so the ordinance moved the act, and so now we're under the act and rules. Now, the act and rules are in court as well right now. So that's under litigation as well. That's in the High Court, and that case is ongoing. In terms of, did the Delhi government does it have the ability to actually pass the act and rules as it has done? And that's in court right now at this moment in time. But in terms of what does that say itself, coming back to what's the difference, right? So the difference is that the the new act, which relies on a different system. Okay, and actually it's modeled on the 2016 Rajasthan Act as
Okay.
well, right? So that
Okay.
was the basis,
Okay.
and it's been adapted and put in for Delhi as well.
Okay.
So it's been something that's been running there for now 10 years, right? But that's been taken as a basis, but with some modifications here. But essentially established is a school level fee regulation committee
Yeah.
where you have parent participation on there,
Yeah.
mandatory, and they're selected by a draw of lots, 5 parents that come onto that committee together with teachers and an 11-member committee. And that committee will make any decision on fees,
Yeah.
right? So that's what, fundamentally, that's what it says, that
Okay.
no fee can change unless it's approved
By the committee.
by that committee, right? Now, it doesn't say what the maximum is. There's no limit in that,
Okay.
right? It's whatever that committee approves.
Okay.
Yeah? So it could be 0, it could be 50, it could be 5, right?
Yeah.
It's whatever that committee is approving. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing with that. Now, that's has not been affected because it's in court now, right?
Yeah.
So we're in a limbo situation at the moment.
Yeah.
Schools are, again,
In the
unfortunately,
dark.
in the dark about now what is the future going to be as well. But that's what that change was about.
It's pretty confusing for a layman also to understand, because when you read the news, one thing is this, then other thing is this. Now you don't know what to interpret out of all these things.
Yeah.
You, as a normal parent or consumer, you get so confused and you're not able to understand. It's very confusing. Now we are talking about the mistrust of parents, students, everyone with the schools. Now the things happening in CBSE right now, the OSM issue which happened. Do you think this mistrust is increasing every day?
So I think in institutions generally,
Yeah.
I think we have a high level of distrust. I think in all institutions around us as a
Yeah.
society. So I don't think this is, as I said, I don't think it's education specific. But if we all reflect on ourselves and we see how as a society we're behaving, we generally are questioning everything much more, right?
Yeah.
We are more cynical around almost everything around us, right? As well. And I think education is another one of those examples as well. Now, whether it's at schools or whether it's the wider institutions around the education system as well.
No. So, what is your opinion on the OSM issue which happened in CBSE?
So I think OSM itself, I don't think there's any well, I don't know, maybe there probably is arguments, but in terms of my view as well, which is that is the direction where, in a technological world, we have to be going. We should be going, right? And India's not the first country to try and do this. It's prevalent in many countries that are technologically advanced, where people are not marking on physical pieces of paper any longer. It's on a digital marketing platform, and there's many benefits that have been there to show case studies around that. So I think that is for clear cut that OSM marking is the direction that we should be going as well. Now, the other point becomes, how well has it been done, right? And the experience that people have had. Clearly, there's a lot of shortcomings in terms of
Too many.
Yeah, in terms of the experience that students have faced in their Class 12 board, which is unfortunate. But that's not OSM itself. It's the issues that have come about the actual execution, and the experience they've had as a result of it as well. And they're all over the headlines of the news.
Now, I think for a parent watching this, we have tried to interpret that what questions they should ask the school if they think the fee is high, what metrics they should see before admitting their child to a school. But again, if I'm a parent watching this, now I am choosing a school for my child. So do I choose a school which has 15,000 rupees a month fee and all the things right? Or a school which has 5,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees month fee and all is right? Which one do I choose? Do I only go with the feeling that the amount is higher so the school will be better?
So I think you have to understand what is it that you're paying more for, right? And in that case, as we talked around, what are the ways you can try and understand, in terms of, am I going to get, is the learning experience going to be better for my child here in a way that's important to me, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm a parent, I believe that, look, my dream is that I want my son or daughter to crack a NEET,
Yeah.
right? And this is my dream, and this is where I want to be. then then you're going to be prioritizing academic path, right?
Yeah,
As well. And then you say, fine, this school has none of that other stuff on there, but academically they're solid, right? They're doing weekly testing schedules. Academically, they're, that you can see, that's what they're focused on. And then, that's what you just look at and say, I'm paying this fee. They do this really well. I don't need swimming pools and other fancy infrastructure and other luxuries. Maybe I don't need air conditioning in the school either as well, right? These are all expenses. I don't want child to have any of those. And I'm ready to, and because of that, the lower fee is fine for me, right? Someone else might say, okay, I actually want an environment like that, right? And therefore I'm okay to pay that as well. My child will have this, right? In terms of, okay, these labs will be there as well. They have smaller class sizes. So you've got to understand, for that extra fee, what is the difference, right? Get to those questions that we're talking about, and then say, do they matter to you?
Yeah. But isn't it a gamble? Because my child, if he or she is 4 or 5 years old, you can't decide what he or she will become or what they want to become. And now I admit my child saying they want to crack NEET. But now after 2 years, I realize they want to play cricket. They want to be Virat Kohli.
Yeah.
So then what do I do? Is
Well,
there a clear answer to this?
No, unfortunately, there is no clear answer, right? I mean, it's one of those things, as I said, if you think in life, when we go and look at many things we can, purchase or buy or invest into, it's never such a clear cut, right?
Yeah.
There's some gut feel that always comes into it. This feels right. Or, I have friends who are there already, right? And they're happy there as well. And that's good enough for me. That's given me comfort factor as well. So there's going to be some hard aspects, I'd say, with your head, and others which will be more with your, your gut feeling as well.
Because then there's another debate which people often say, that people in government schools also become doctors, and then people in ultimate private schools also don't do anything.
Yeah.
So it depends on the child also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's, end of the day, it's going to be, does the child have that inner drive, right? Yeah. And that's what you're trying to foster, right, as well, as a parent.
Do you think importance of schools is going down in the future?
See, I think
after technology coming in and the edtech booming and students learning more and more from YouTube and Physics Wala and other edtech companies coming in, giving free of cost the resources.
Yeah. So I think schools, there's a massive disruption that's going to happen with schools. Unlike the higher education sector, I think higher education, because there's massive disruption there, the whole concept of a 3-year degree doesn't even make any sense any longer.
Yeah.
Why would you invest all that time and money into that?
Yeah.
Are there better ways to get those outcomes? And I think there's a massive sort of shift happening there. For schools, it's interesting because on one hand, children have to go somewhere, right? They can't stay at home. I mean, they can stay at home, but parents don't want them sitting at home as well, right?
Yeah.
They'll go mad.
Yeah.
So there's a place somewhere they have to go until they're old enough to be released into the real world, until they're an adult. Now we call that place school, right? Now, so school, a place that they go to that we call school, I think will not go away, right? Now the question becomes, what do they do when they go to that place, right? What is the purpose of that place? Yeah. And you're absolutely right. If an AI tutor can teach your physics concepts, personalized to you at your level, they're going to be able to do it better than a teacher standing in front of 40 children of varying abilities. Yeah. Right? So there'll be a number of things, absolutely, that AI tutoring is getting super good at and will get even better at. I would say a lot of the core academics, right? So you say, okay, they can do well, but what is it that they're not doing, right? What is it that's the human aspect that you need to develop as well? Yeah. So where do you actually interact with another human being, right? So you can do that in a school. You're bringing kids together of diversity, communication skills, teamworking, collaboration. So I think all of those things start to become the things that you say that schools will need to shift. So it's interesting. People talk about core curricula, extracurricular, right? Or I think this thing starts to flip. What we would up till now think, which are extracurricular or co-curricular activities, the sports, the arts, the drama, all those other things, I think they will become the core curricula of schools.
Absolutely.
And you're actually going to get this thing moving out, right?
Yeah.
Flipping.
Yeah.
They will become core.
100%.
Yeah. So things like sports, right? Sports in a school typically is low priority. If something needs to be cut, cut the sports
is the
class.
first thing. Yeah.
Cut the sports class, right? Something else is going on in school. Some of the cut the sports class, right? That's a mindset, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's like, this needs to change because people will start to realize that actually sports are super powerful, team sports especially.
Yeah.
You know, this is a conversation we've been having in our own school as well, where sort of reposition sports and the benefits, especially for teenagers. You actually are learning so many skills through that. First of all, you're being active, which you're not being at the moment.
Yeah.
You're being out in the real world rather than behind a screen. You actually have to collaborate with peers, with other human beings, communicate with them. You win, you lose, you learn, you have a strategy, so many things. So sports will become, things like this will become, where do you build the kind of skills that you need to build beyond those academics which a tutor can teach you?
100%. Thank you so much for all the perspectives, sir, because all this coming from a person who's running a premium school in the capital of the country makes a lot of difference, because I don't know if it gives full clarity to a parent, but I'm sure that they will get a certain clarity, or they will move towards that clarity a little bit from this conversation.
Okay. Well, I hope so. I mean, like I said, it's not black and white. It's not so clear cut easy,
Yeah.
but I think there are certain things that they can look at.
Thank you. It was a pleasure having you.
Sure. I enjoyed being here. Thank you.